And here's a quote from that video. They were maintenance intensive, unreliable, unpredictable, hard to repair, and the Y-Block quickly became one of the worst engines that Ford ever made. Do you believe that? Hey guys, Dan Jessup here. I'm known as the Hot Rod Reverend, and the title of this video really has to do with answering the question of whether or not the Y-Block Ford V8 was Ford's biggest failure. I am amazed that that video got 25,000 views or more in 2 weeks' time, when it is filled with an AI voiceover. You can tell that by the way that voice sounds and the way it talks. It even says unleaded fuel as unleaded fuel. Secondly, that video is filled with clips borrowed from the internet, borrowed from other YouTube channels, the stills and everything else. There's not one piece of original content. Even if you look at the comments that the channel owner makes to people that leave comments down below the video, the guy waffles all over the place about whether or not the Y-Block was a good engine or not. He's just trying to keep people in his channel, get subscribers. I'll hand it to him. He did a very good job in trolling people, get a lot of people upset. Even John Mummert, expert in the Y-Block, and known for his aluminum racing heads and all of that with the high performance engines, and what he's done with the Y-Block over the last 20 years or so is just excellent. Even he weighed in and made a comment or two. This video is insane. I'm not going to take the entire time to hack that video up, but it's kind of crazy if you think about it. Why would somebody want to make a video that takes any pot shots at a 50s engine? I don't care of what make, and really all over classic cars and everything else. It's just beyond me. Let's just set the record straight on some things and give you some information about the Y-Block. Why I think it was, for the 50s, it was great for Ford. It did a very good job and kind of launched them into the FE and the Windsor series later on. Wonderful, wonderful engine, the Y-Block. If you're on my channel, you know I've got a lot of Y-Block footage and tech and all kinds of things. I don't claim to be any kind of expert. I don't know it all. Maybe some things you find in my video that I didn't get exactly right. You're more than welcome to fact check me. Get out your books, get out your manuals, Google or whatever. But I think you'll find a lot of the things I have to say are right on point today. Number one, Ford made the Y-Block originally, its design, the way the engine is designed with its heads, intake, breathing in and out and all the rest of that, with the Lincoln in 1952, the Lincoln variant of the Y-Block. And great engine, sturdy, stout, torquey. Did a real good job down in Mexico in that Panamericana race. And there's a lot of stuff on the internet that you can find out in books as well about the race history of that engine. Very good. 1954, obviously Ford came out with the 239 Ford Y-Block. And then it goes all the way through 1964 in trucks, 1962 in vehicles, and I think it was in the Galaxies in 1962. And what ends up happening is that in 55, we go from the 239 to the 256, 55 to a 272 and 292. 56, late in the year, we end up adding the 312. And then 57, of course, 312 is kind of just very well known. Most people that have a Y-Block for sale, they don't know the Y-Block very well. They say it's a 312, ends up being a 292. And if you're a Y-Block kind of guy, you know what that's all about. Wink, wink. If you know, you know. Let me just go through some things about the video that are kind of very inaccurate. Number one, the Y-Block has heads that the intake ports are horizontally stacked, not vertically. And you know anything about vertical, we're looking up and down. That's the small block Ford. That's the small block Chevrolet. That's not the Y-Block. Y-Block has horizontal intake ports. Secondly, this crazy video says that the intake and exhaust ports were stacked on each other. That is not the case. There's a crossover for the exhaust ports in the middle of each head as it goes from one side, from one head to the other. But the exhaust and intake ports are not stacked on each other. This guy who put out this video, tell me you don't know much about the Y-Block by not telling me you know much about the Y-Block at all and just saying some stuff that is just downright stupid. It doesn't make any sense at all. This video, there are some things that this guy goes through, and I'm not going to go through all this. You may be a little bit nervous about the length of the video here, but don't be. It's kind of crazy. He makes some statements about the top end oiling and how bad that was and everything else. What is crazy to me is that he admits that Ford recommended detergent oil in your Y block, which obviously you would need, and that we think about the way the head is designed. I've got another video on my channel about top end oiling in the Y block and just explaining how there's two 90-degree turns that the oil passage take on each head to get up to your rocker arms, the shafts from the block. Well, if you use non-detergent oil and you didn't change the oil very much, the paraffin base and the stuff that's in that oil back in the 50s and early 60s and so on, you'd end up clogging that passage up, and you couldn't get there at all. And so you'd need that top-end oiling kit and all the rest of that. Well, he ends up saying that about the fact that Ford recommended detergent oil, but that many owners use non-detergent oil. And so this was Ford's fault because this was taking place. 3 questions I have for this guy about the Ford Y block and whether or not it was really the most failed engine that Ford ever manufactured from Detroit. Number 1, if that's the case, why did Ford outsell Chevrolet in 1957? The Y block had been out, obviously in the Lincoln in 52, but in the Ford 54, 55, and 56. For 3 years, consumers had their opportunity to make a choice and decision on whether or not the Ford Y block was the engine of what they needed in their vehicles that they were buying from the dealership. 1957, they did make their choice. And some of you may think, well, it's because of the styling. Compare a 57 Ford to a 57 Chevrolet. 2024, modern day, most people that think of a 50s car, they think of the styling, the body lines, trim, and all of that of a 57 Chevrolet. They don't think of a 57 Ford. I don't think it was because of the styling of a 57 Ford. It had to be because of reliability of the Y block V8 engine. Consumers and their happiness, it was just fine in 1957. Secondly, if the Ford Y block V8 was the most failed engine ever, why is it that in 1956 and 57, Ford dominated the NASCAR tracks and they won more races than all other makes combined in 1956 and 1957? We have the story of Carroll Miller and his failed Y block at Bonneville, Utah at the Salt Flats, setting records with a 292 that he drove in his failed 1956 Ford Victoria all the way from Texas to Utah. If Ford saw and just experienced that the Y block was such a failure, why did they continue to put the Y block in trucks up until 1964? And beyond 1964 in South America, continued to manufacture the Y block in Argentina and Brazil, and not just trucks, but Galaxies and other cars in the Ford line, even to the extent of doing a little bit more R&D and coming out with what was called a phase 2 of the Ford Y block in the 60s. This is what was known as the most failed Ford engine that was ever made, the Y block V8. This video is a bunch of baloney. Stay tuned to the channel here, hotrodreverend.com as well. Coming days and weeks, we'll have more information about the Y block, kind of dispelling a number of myths, urban legends, all the misinformation that's out there. So click like and subscribe, and we'll see you around.